what would be a legacy letter that you would write to yourself that you would want that person to read at that time?
I would definitely tell myself to save. Save. Like every $50, put it to the side. Because at the time I was working so hard and I just was not putting as much as I could. Because I love myself a little bit more, to know that I'm worth the extra, that I'm worth making sure that I have the protection and just valuing what I have then.
Insurance isn't just about fear, it's about freedom. It's about giving our family a foundation they can stand on, even if they're not there.
Right.
So I want to thank you for being proof that preparation is power. So just in basic terms, what's the difference between like a term and whole life policy?
For sure. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people are just not educated as much as they should be. And that's something that me and my team, we always dig in first. It's just education, trying to get people to understand the difference of what they have and what they can have. Not death insurance, it's called life insurance. Like, it's preparing you for life tragedies, life common conditions that happens. And it happens every day. You just have to be ready to plan for it. Like, one of the things we say all the time, like, people don't plan to fail, they fail to plan.
Most people think life insurance is about dying. But what if I told you it's actually about living? My life changed forever when my wife was diagnosed with cancer 2 weeks after giving birth to our son. I thought I was doing everything right. We had dreams, we had plans, and the what if happened. It hit us hard financially, emotionally, and spiritually. Today's guest knows that story all too well, not just as a professional, but as a survivor. Alicia DeVaughn is a passionate insurance professional and a breast cancer survivor who turned her own pain into purpose. She now helps families build legacy, protects what matters the most, and prepares them for the unexpected before it's too late. This isn't just about policies, it's about a peace of mind. Let's talk about how insurance can be love in action while you're still here. What is going on? Welcome. And thank you once again. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited because when we first met, which was serendipity, and we just kind of started talking, I knew that we just had a lot of aligned synergy, which with a lot of my other guests that I had, it was just same thing, aligned synergy. And I believe that with this conversation that we're going to have, we'll just bring a lot more context from a different perspective, because I know when people talk about life insurance, they often talk about, the Rockefeller method, and they talk about building generational wealth. But I think that how our stories just align for the necessity of it is going to bring a lot more context into this situation. So
absolutely.
Let's go ahead and, as I like to say, dive right into it. I like to give people the meat and potatoes. So when you first got that call, and that moment when you answered the phone and they told you that you have cancer, what was going through your mind in that moment?
I can honestly say in the beginning, I was in a state of shock. I was maybe in shock for probably about a day or two. I didn't leave the house. I didn't talk to nobody. I think I talked to one friend. We were like friends who like to text and send each other jokes. And I was texting this person and they were texting me joking. And in the middle of us texting, I got the call from the doctor basically saying that your biopsy came back, that you have cancer. And I just text my friend immediately like, hey, I just found out I had cancer. And then it was like, okay, everything is not funny right now. Like everything about my life at that moment just suddenly changed. Stuff that felt big was just super small. And all I could think about was, what now? And it was definitely just a state of shock. I never thought. I was young. I was 32 at the time. And at that time, you're just living freely. You're not thinking about, that's the furthest thing from your mind is, I may have breast cancer or any type of illness that's life-changing. So yeah, it was definitely a big shock for me in the beginning, for sure.
And I know exactly like that call.
Yeah.
And I know exactly where I was at when they told us. And as I tell people, life comes at you 100 miles an hour, but then you're frozen in time. And things are still going so fast, but you can literally see things passing by you. And you're like,
Yeah.
wait, life just froze, but things are still moving at a rapid pace. So in that moment, did you think about life insurance before that? Or is it something that you were thinking that, which I know we talked about this and I want you to tell
Yeah.
your story about that, but did you think about life insurance after that or before that? Like, how did your thought process change about life insurance and protection when you had got that diagnosis? Like, where was your mind at based around that?
Yeah. I want to say at that moment before cancer, life insurance was an afterthought. Like I knew it was something that was important. And then I had a job. I still have the same job as a flight attendant. That's one of the jobs I've been having for years. But when I first started becoming a flight attendant, it was just always just sign up for what they tell you to sign up for. Just do what they say do. You really don't ask certain questions at a young age. What's important, things I need to think about. What if this happens and what if that happens? And I just honestly thought I had the best plan possible at my job. I remember after breaking out of shock, because I was in shock for like 2 days or so, but instantly I went into survival mode. Like, okay, you have to survive this. What are you going to do? And I remember calling my job and I just knew they had something set up because I signed up for, we had levels of insurance that you can have. And I signed up for the max. I was like, I want the best this, the best health. So I remember calling our benefits department and I told them what was happening and what you all could offer me and what can I get out of this policy that I have at work. And they were basically like, oh, it's nothing we can do. Everything is burial. You have to pretty much be gone to access this money. And so I was just shocked from that too, because I'm like, I've been working at this job all these years and I've been giving you all these money, week after week and check after check. You mean to tell me, yo, you don't have nothing? I remember my supervisor telling me, do you have family or somebody you can live with temporarily? Because my doctor initially told me that my cancer was aggressive and I needed to start treatment right away. And he also told me that he didn't want me to be at work. The job that I have, it wasn't a sustainable job for me to be around that many people while I was going through treatment. So he was like, it was going to be best for me to stay home. And my supervisor was like, it'd probably be best if you to go move in with somebody, stay with a family member, somebody who you could depend on. And I was like, lady, I can't depend on nobody but myself. It's just me. I'm a single woman. I don't have a husband and I live by myself and it's nobody I could just lean on right now. And I love my family to death. But at the time, nobody in my family, I was the person everybody leaned on. So it wasn't successful for me to just go up to somebody like, hey, can I stay here for a year? I was off of work a whole year. So definitely it was one of those things where it didn't matter before, but it hit me like a ton of bricks at the time. Like, this is something that should have been dealt with a long time ago.
So, two things that you mentioned, and we've talked about this in previous episodes that I want to unpack. Anyone that's watching, and if you are working at a job, I highly, 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 highly encourage you to speak to a professional such as Alicia, like speak to a professional, because the thing is, it's not like you can only have one policy. You can have multiple policies, but the education on the policies is what's going to give you the financial peace that you need before the storm comes. I grew up where my mom was an insurance broker, and there was one thing that she would always say, and this is something that I want to tell you guys that are watching, especially if you're young with no preconditions. You may not think the when, what if is going to ever happen to you, but it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when, not if. She would always tell me, get the most coverage you can get while you're the healthiest you are and you're the youngest you are. Because as you get older, conditions come in, premiums go up, and it's going to be harder to get qualified for a policy. So I encourage everybody to seek professional advice on how to get qualified for a plan now. The second thing I would say is because of that knowledge that I had, I was very grateful. I was very, very grateful. And I had conversations with my wife. And because of the conversations that I had with her, you know, she was 34 years old, but we had these conversations when she was 27 years old when we got married. So she was very informed. And anytime she went into a job, she always opted in at the best coverage, not just for funeral and burial. She opted in at the best coverage. So she was always protected because of the conversations that we had. And hopefully this conversation, when somebody watches this and they're working at a job, they can go back and revisit their policy to make sure that it's not just burial, but they want to opt in because it comes out of your check. So, and there's another thing too, which I'm very curious. You didn't ask your job this question and I don't know, and I'm sure airlines do this too. All corporations, to my knowledge of what I was talking to her HR about is, so they take out policies on you. Mm-hmm. So you have a policy that you sign up for, but then they also have a policy that they take out on you for death that is in a large lump sum amount, because what they're probably doing is taking that and then reinvesting the cash value that's built up in that into whatever else they're doing. But there's always, and there should be two policies, one that you pay for and one that the company pays for. So I would always look into that to see what policy does the company have on me, and then what policy am I paying for, and how do I get access to those, and how do I name the beneficiary of both of those? So that's just something that if you are watching this and you work at a job, you should probably speak to them in regards to that, to just really see and make sure that you are set up, you know, the right way. So now that you are doing life insurance, I know that this work just isn't professional. It's just not something that you're professionally doing that you just want to do because as a profession, it's personal.
Yeah.
So what drives you now when you're sitting across from families?
Of course, now when I sit across from people, it's urgency. Because like you said, people always think we have time. We don't. I tell people the number one enemy to your money is procrastination and thinking that you have time. For me personally, it wasn't that I didn't think that I had all the time in the world. I just wasn't really educated formally. Like at my job, I thought I had the best. I didn't know that my job best that they offered had a limit to it. It didn't have certain benefits to it. And now they offer it, which is ironic. But back then when I was working it, they didn't have those benefits if something happened to you while you're living and things like that. Definitely just being educated and just doing things with urgency. Like I tell people, like, you need to take advantage, like you said, take advantage while you're young, take advantage while you don't have all these conditions in your family or in your life. And even with your children, like you can start a policy on your child as long as they're the first 2 weeks of birth. So within that time frame, you can compound money faster. You can do a lot of things early on. Just don't think that you always have so much time to deal with it later. Like, take advantage of it now. Make your budget where you can have it set aside for now. So that's my number one thing when I'm sitting across from my family, is to make sure that they know how urgent it is.
That's good. And I think, which is unfortunate, that especially in the Black and brown communities, when you're sitting across from them and you're talking to them about life insurance, they're thinking that you're just trying to sell them a product. And I know that they don't understand that this is coming from real life experience. This is not coming from me just trying to sell you something to get some money. This is something that is setting your family up to bring them the legacy, give them the peace. And also, you know, some people, they have their own thoughts on it being an investment vehicle. If it's utilized the right way, I believe that it is an investment vehicle. But nevertheless, when the storm does come, as we talk about, this is an umbrella that is going to be needed. And it's better to pick out the umbrella before the storm hits than to try to find an umbrella that can cover the storm once you're in it.
Right.
So
right.
I think that when people are talking to life insurance agents, they have to start to recondition their mind as, this person is not trying to sell me something, versus this is a necessity and a part of the foundation that's needed for my family.
Yeah,
not
for
just,
sure.
I'm just trying to buy something or they're trying to sell me something. This is just a part of my foundation. And I believe that if you don't have life insurance, and if you think it's a scam, I mean, we obviously know from firsthand that it's not.
Mm-hmm.
You can't authentically build generational wealth without having a life insurance policy,
Right, for
because
sure.
your assets that you have and the debt on your assets and having to reconcile those, and there's just things that are it's going to put you further behind without having it than it is if you are having it. Because everybody who says, well, they can't afford it, you can afford whatever you want to make a budget for. And even if you're just starting off with just a very simple policy and then you start to work your way up, that's something is better than nothing. So what would you say is the most common life events that leave people financially exposed? So when you've talked to people or you've written policies for them, what are some of the life events that happen that you see they either that are the causes to death, or something that made them think about, like, hey, this happened in my family, or this happened to this person, and this is why I want to talk to you about.
Yeah, so of course, most common things that happen to people now are you find people more having cancer early on, stroke, heart attacks, even with dementia. Like they have a study coming out that people are getting dementia early on. It was just not funny, but it's. I was just talking to someone about how everything is becoming so easy. We got the Chat GPT, and we have all these things that's making things easier for us, but it's also giving us a little more break on our brain work. So it's causing dementia and onset of Alzheimer's, things like that a little earlier. So we have all these common things, critical and chronic. You also have some people who have just been hurt at work or just in an accident. Now all of a sudden they can't walk the same. They need a wheelchair. They can't even bathe, or, those chronic illnesses, things like that happen way more than you expect.
Yeah.
They say majority of us are going to live through our conditions. Everything is not going to be, oh, this happened to me and now they're gone for life. And of course, death is a big thing that happens that you need to be prepared for, but you have to be prepared for life tragic situations that happen to you way more than what you think. Life insurance is called life insurance for a reason. It's not death insurance. It's called life insurance. Like, it's preparing you for life tragedies, life common conditions that happens, and it happens every day. You just have to be ready to plan for it. Like, one of the things we say all the time, like, people don't plan to fail, they fail to plan. Like, you just need to make sure that you have the security blanket you need just in case something like this happens, and you have the basic support. And once again, I do agree that death is the biggest life event that can happen, but even with that, we have to be prepared. Like the GoFundMe funerals and things like that, of course that's helpful, but like you said, if you can put money to aside to go out, hang out, have vacations, and go out every weekend, you can make sure you can have a small burial fee set aside to take care of you and your family, so you won't leave them with not just you passing, but also just the financial heartache of that too.
Yeah, and I will give you my thoughts on the GoFundMe burials that happen when we talk about funerals, but I have my own take on that. But do you have an example of someone who either you've talked to them about life insurance and they were like, I'm okay right now, and then something happened and then they tried to come back? Or have you talked to a family where they didn't understand how life insurance worked and something happened and then they were trying to get it at that time?
All the time. All the time. Like, I have people who wait until something happened. Like, oh my God, my husband just had a heart attack and I'm scared that something's going to happen to him and I got to take on his house note. What could we do? And I'm like, okay, I tried to get you something early on, but now I can probably just get you like a final expense policy. And those policies are not cheap. Like, once you are diagnosed with a precondition, of course I can try to find you something, but you will end up going from paying $200 to $300 a month for something so minimum when you could have had a larger policy with living benefits and been paying like a fraction of that cost. So I tell people all the time, like you said, it's best to get on it now. Like, in my family right now, we're going through something similar. And it's not that my family member didn't want to get the policy. She did. She just kept pushing it back. And she just passed away on Mother's Day. That's one of
Wow.
my aunts. And to this day, we still haven't buried her because we're still putting funds together for her. That, to every time I think about it, is heartbreaking because I kept calling her. I was like, oh, we need to get this policy together. And she just kept pushing it back. She was like, I got so much going on. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it.
I'll get to it later.
Yeah, yeah. And before you know it, she had a heart attack. Well, two heart attacks. And then she just had one on Mother's Day that took her out.
So why do you think when you talk to people, and even when you were talking to her, why do you think their mindset or people are so conditioned to say, I'll get to it later or
Yeah.
not right now?
Yeah, I think for her and a lot of people, having that conversation with her husband, having that conversation with her kids, not to say that she wasn't ready to have it. I feel like it was a little fear there. Having that mortality conversation with people you love, like, hey, this may happen to me. We got to start putting this money to the side. And then the economy is changing. I do agree that things are more costly. Every dollar counts right now. But we just have to put our priorities together. Like, this is more important. Like, you have to make sure that you have these things in place. Or you ended up right now, everybody's trying to chip money together just to get her a proper burial.
So when it comes to thinking about burial, final expenses, income replacement, debt, childcare, as you're talking about this, a lot of people don't fully understand what that expense is and
Yeah.
how much those expenses are.
Right.
And I know
Right.
firsthand how much those expenses are. And when you were going through, as you're going through the funeral process right now, what were some of the pricing quotes that you've been putting
Yeah.
together for just funeral costs? Let's just talk about funeral
Right.
costs. Like, what's some of the pricing that you've been kind of going through?
Yeah. I want to say that average funeral cost right now is around $20,000. And it could be a little less depending on the funeral home, but average is about $20,000 right now. And that's why we try to tell people to do annual reviews, go over your policies with your agent or find another agent who can go over what you have, because there are some people who've been having the same policies for like 20 plus years. And yeah, back in the 90s, you could probably do a burial for like $5,000, $7,000. It's not the same no more. You need $5,000 just to dig in a grave now. Like, it's not that price no more.
And you're 1,000% correct. And when you Google online, they say, "Oh, the average funeral cost is between $5,000 and $7,000." I don't think their data has been updated.
No, not at
Because
all.
you're not burying anybody for 5 to 7. You might cremate somebody for that
And
amount.
even that, even cremation has gone up. Like,
Yeah.
it used to be like 2,000 to get a cremation done. They want like 5,000, 7,000 now
Yeah.
for
And I think that because the conversation is not had often, I think people underestimate the cost of funeral. And we're talking about the bare minimum. And
You're right.
when I say the bare minimum, like, we're not talking about
Yeah,
police escorts and, we're not talking about repasses. We're not we're talking about just
yeah,
plot, burial,
coffin.
coffin.
Yeah.
Like, we're talking about embalming. Like, there's, and not to even mention if you have to fly a person from one state to another because
Right.
they want to be buried in their state. Like, there's so many things that go into a funeral that people don't even think about. And I get it. They don't want to associate that because they think that by not talking about it, they're not going to have to address it, but it will be addressed whether you want to talk about it or not. But, you know, I know for me, when I buried my wife, and this was bare minimum, like, I had to fly her from here to Texas, coffin, repass, the plot, basic flowers, photos, pastors, the service, the viewing. That was around $44,000 to bury her. And that was no police escorts. There wasn't no fancy. This was to get her from where we were at in Texas back to California and do a ceremony for her that was going to be adequate for my wife. And that was the cost for that. And because, they were trying to stick her behind the bathroom, like, oh, we got a plot here for, and I'm like, well, you're not about to put her behind the bathroom. Like, we're not doing that. We're not about to do that. So I think that's the thing too. I know a lot of people, when it comes to financials and budgeting, like, these are things that you just have to start considering, and you need to start having an understanding and speaking to a life insurance agent. I would even speak to a funeral home so you can understand what the cost is, because we're talking about this in 2025.
Right.
Inflation. I always keep telling people, you just can't have 50 million funeral homes all over everywhere where they're just buying land. So if you're going to walk through your city, you're going to be walking through a cemetery because people think that they're just going to bury people all over the city, and they're not going to do that. Spots are going to become premium spots, and then they're going to be charging premium rates.
Yep.
And then you're not going to have anything else to do unless somebody does come up with a different way, but to cremate them. So, people talk about life insurance for when you die, but we both know that it's also something that can build wealth while you're alive as well. But I think that a lot of people have a very lack of understanding of life insurance because of how the policies are and what type of policies are out there. So just in basic terms, what's the difference between like a term and whole life policy?
For sure. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people are just not educated as much as they should be. And that's something that me and my team, we always dig in first. It's just education, trying to get people to understand the difference of what they have and what they can have. Of course, term policy is a more affordable policy, but it's also called term for a reason. It's temporary. It's just protection that's going to give you for a specific period. Now, they do have levels for like 10, 20, 30. They even have some that has 40 years. It may be harder to get those type of older, longer terms, but it's only temporary. And I tell people to only stay in a term no longer than 10 or 15 years, because once you get to a rate older, like you said, you have the conditions that may come in. It might be harder for you to switch to a permanent. So just think of it like, okay, this is what I have now until I can get something better. And you can also use term like no policy is better than the other. You can use certain policies for certain reasons. Like I tell people, term policies are great for mortgage protection. If you just bought a house and your home is a 30-year mortgage, get a term policy, get a 30-year term on that policy. So in the span of something happening to you or your family, you can use your mortgage protection to pay off the house or to keep the payments going if something, because you have your home protection, your insurance on your home, but you don't have protection on your life. So you can use that for your home and then still have your permanent protection to use for other things in the future. But sure. Once again, term is just temporary, so it's there for you for small term amount allotment of time. And then you have permanent policies, which that's where you get into the whole life and the IULs. They have other versions of IULs that are not just index but variable IULs. But those policies cover you for a lifelong, your lifespan, as long as you keep them active. And those policies also offer not only just living benefits and protection after death, but you can also build compounding interest and have cash value. So I tell people to think about it as two things. You have your death policy and you also have like a bank. So you can go into this policy and utilize it as much as you want to, as long as you have the funds there. Borrow money from yourself, pay it back, and all of this is tax-free. Anything, even with a term policy, if something was to happen to you and you have to access living benefits in your term policy, every dollar that you get out of your insurance policy is protected under tax guidelines, so you don't have to pay any taxes on that money. So there's good and bad in each one, but I would always try to tell people to make sure you have a permanent policy eventually. Like you need something that's going to cover you forever, not just for the next 10 years. But if this is all you can start with, then that's what we can start with. Like we go over everybody's budget and we go over the goals of where you are now and where you want to be. And we just start where you are, because you can honestly just get something at any price point.
Yep. Nope. That's good. That once again, this is definitely, as I like to say, not financial advice. We encourage everybody to do their own research and speak to a professional financial advisor or a professional life insurance agent to make sure that you are getting the correct and best advice for your situation. But when it comes to, whole life, I think people also, and this is kind of where I like to swim in when it comes to diversifying your asset portfolio. And there are ways to, they talk about the Rockefeller waterfall method. And I believe that That is a great way to cover your assets and outstanding debt. But also, I believe that there is a way to take your policy, utilize the cash value in it to then reinvest into another asset that's an income producing asset that can then contribute back and replenish that policy. But also, too, the goal for the policy to increase in value based upon the interest rate vehicle that is increasing that is going to also replenish that as well. It's about really understanding the type of policy that you have and understanding the best use case for yourself. And that's why just having conversations like this gives you the ability to really start to wrap your head around like what really works for you.
Correct.
So in regards to life insurance, do you have a story of somebody that you did sign up or somebody that you know that did have life insurance before and it changed their life and gave them just a easier, their family just an easier path when moving forward?
Yeah, we have plenty of stories in our company and our team. One of the best ones I like to tell was this man who had an actual terminal illness. The doctor told him that I think he had only like 13 months to live. It was almost like a little bit over a year. Now, when you have living benefits and most living benefits cover terminal illnesses, if the doctor gives you less than 24 months to live, they say that you can access up to 80% of your funds. This guy had a $300,000 face value policy and took out 200 once he found out he had terminal illness. And instead of going through treatment at the hospital, he took that money and went to go to a holistic hospital. And he's still here today. That happened like over 10 years ago. So
Wow.
things like that just make you feel like, oh, okay, this is something that changed his whole life, knowing that he had that money to try a different treatment plan. And then, of course, there's another friend of mine in the business who had breast cancer who was able to access a portion of her living benefits so she can be off of work for months. And she was able to not only pay off a lot of money in her house, but also be off of work for almost a whole year. And to me, that's really life changing for me because I always think like that could have been me. I had to access my 401k. I had to access loans and banks. Like that put me behind so much to just get back that year I lost from not working. And I always think like if I just had something like that at that time to take care of me while I was off of work for an entire year, like I wouldn't have to be working twice as hard or working now to rebuild my 401k in my 40s because I had to utilize all my funds in my 30s. And your retirement planning is a big essential thing to do early on. Of course, you can always start later, but it's harder later. And it's early, when you compound earlier at an earlier age, and the market is different. The market now is completely different from when it was 10 years ago. So things like that come into play when you think about, I just should have had something set aside, a different policy. But it is great to see other people are using it and they're winning with it. And you don't have to worry about that. You have just the peace of mind alone will keep you well.
That's good. That's good. So we know that the hardest part is starting, but it's
Yeah.
also the most important part. So what would you say 3 things people can do today to use as a starting point to start putting these practices in place for their family?
Yeah, just have the conversation. Like sit down with your spouse, sit down with your parents, siblings, sit down and have conversations with your older parents. I know I just had this conversation with a friend of mine who needs to sit down and talk to his father. Like I said, you may think that your parents have good policies, but they probably had a policy they've had for 30 plus years and don't have enough funds to take care of what is happening now in the market for funeral costs and things like that. Just sit down and go through what you have and what you feel like you need to have, and then talk to a professional, reach out to someone and see if you can just do a policy review or go over your finances with someone to talk about this is what I can put aside for this and this is what we can get later if our income goes up. And just start, even if it's something small, just start with something. It's always better than nothing. And just don't wait. I tell people that if people ask me when is the best time to start, yesterday. That's the
I
best time
agree.
to start.
I
Yeah.
agree. So what would be your response and advice for people who say, well, I can't afford it or I don't understand?
Right. Well, just having a real conversation. Like I said, just sitting down, talking it through. Most people, once they do sit down, and it's a hard conversation to sit there and talk about your finances with somebody and keep it real. Like, hey, I do spend a little money on Amazon, a little too much, or I
Yeah.
might go to Target a few, more than I need to. Like having those conversations and being real with somebody and saying, like, I can't put this to the side. I can't cut this off. I don't have to go out eating every weekend. Things like that. You just need to have a real conversation with a professional to let you know, like, you have this money. You just need to know how to access it and how to make sure that it's available. And then just starting a budget and explaining that with somebody, it's easier than what you think. It's not as hard.
No, that is great. And so for the men and women listening who's never heard this conversation or never had this conversation with their spouse, how would you say, and I can answer this question as well too, how would you say they should begin? Like, what's the first thing you would say to them
Yeah.
to say, hey, to have this conversation?
It's so funny because when we do talk to couples, because we usually tell people if they're married, we need you to talk together. Because one person thought process and then, the telephone thing, oh, this is what I heard, and they don't relay it right. So we usually try to get them to talk together. And the first thing they will probably say, like, oh, she's just trying to take some money out on me if I die. And I was like, I really think people need to turn it into a love talk and not a talk about, oh, you're going to take money and live this life after I'm gone. Like, this is a talk about love. This is a talk about making sure that our family is okay. Like, if you love me and I love you, I need to make sure that you're okay if I'm gone. I need to make sure that we have this in place for our kids. Like, take it from a place of not just making sure that they have the money to move on, but just a place that this is what happened if, in a loving standpoint for me and my family. And it's a life talk. It's not a death talk because, like I said, you will live through most of your conditions. You just need
Yeah.
to make sure that you have those things in place to give you that safety.
No, that's good. And I believe that it's a love talk and a legacy talk. And
Right.
I'm going to speak to the men that are watching right now. There's this talk on the internet about being a protector, being a provider, but there's also, as a part of being a protector, it is for you to protect your family in your absence. And there's conversations that men need to start having with themselves, despite the emotional fear, the mental fear that they have when it comes to their absence, because your absence is going to be your absence. And what you did and what you do to prepare for your absence is what's going to authentically communicate your love of how you were able to leave a foundation for your kids and for your family. So even if you have these conversations first to get educated, to get knowledge, you can then start to take that information, wrap it around the mental framework of how to articulate that and communicate that to your spouse before you bring in a professional. Because this is something that it has to be done together. Two people have to be aligned. Two people have to be on the same page. Two people have to be on one accord when it comes to making these decisions and making these plans. And for people that are single, don't wait until you're married. Like, start now, because this is when you are starting to build your foundation and your legacy. Because at the end of the day, you are an asset that you are bringing into your family, into your husband, into your spouse. So you are bringing in and already setting the foundation of how you view yourself and how you view your family and why that's important, because you want them to know, and your spouse to say, hey, I love you. And if something were to happen with me, I want you to know that I want to make sure that you are going to still be able to continue building what it is that we talked about. And those conversations have to start now.
Right.
So,
Wholly agree. I just want to say that I know we talked about this briefly earlier about our communities, and it's hard for brown and black communities because we are just now getting to a point where we can have these conversations and really mean something to us because we've been excluded from the wealth building society. We have so many systematic barriers that stopped us from that. But it's been said that in the next 20 years, that black and brown communities will have zero assets. And that's mainly because we only put our money in things that don't leave legacies to our family. Everything is slowly declining. We don't have no sustainable things as land and policy. Insurance is instant way to make sure that you have wealth in your family. If you set it up right, if you talk to somebody and you make sure that you have what you need to leave behind for you and your family and your kids, it's an instant way to have tax-free inheritance to pass on to your family. So I totally agree to make sure that that's something that we take more in consideration and treat it more importantly.
No, that is awesome. So I like to do something that I call a legacy letter, and I have a legacy prompt. So
Okay.
I want to give you the prompt and allow you to just kind of speak to yourself and to the people that are watching. So if you could leave a 1-minute message to the version of yourself before the hospital bills, before you had to take off work, before you even had the diagnosis, what would be a legacy letter that you would write to yourself that you would want that person to read at that time?
I would definitely tell myself to save.
Yeah.
Save. Like every half a dollar, put it to the side. Because at the time I was working so hard and I just was not putting as much as I could. But definitely save more, love myself a little bit more, to know that I'm worth the extra, that I'm worth making sure that I have the protection, and just valuing what I have then a little more than what I was doing now. Like just taking care of my body, making sure I was taking the time to educate myself on more things and just putting myself first. That would definitely be, if I feel like I spent so much of my years trying to make sure everybody was okay. I needed to make sure I was okay at an earlier age, and life had to sit me down to do that. But at an earlier age, my younger self, my higher self, future self now would appreciate it if I would have put myself first back then a little earlier.
Yeah. That is awesome. And I wish someone handed me this conversation before my wife's diagnosis came, before the hospital bills, before the funeral home meetings, before I had to become the man I wasn't ready to be yet. Insurance isn't just about fear, it's about freedom. It's about giving our family a foundation they can stand on, even if they're not there.
Right.
So I want to thank you for being proof that preparation is power and having this conversation. And to any listeners that are listening now, this isn't just a conversation to put off. If you are struggling to have the conversation and you want to have these conversations, I want you guys to also visit the links below where we do have the legacy cards that make conversations like this a lot more lighthearted. So there's a family edition, there's a finance edition, there's a couples edition. Get your legacy deck to start going through on yourself, especially men. There's a men edition where you need to ask yourself the questions to become the man you need to be able to stand in the gap for when that time does come. So take the first steps, because when what if happens is going to happen. It's not a matter of when or if, it's a matter of when. And it's not too late to get ready.
Yes.
So where can people find you at if they want to connect with you, if they want to get some advice, they want to get some consultation from you? Like, where can people find you? How can they connect with you?
Sure. Right now, the best way to find me is to email me at asecuredlifenow@gmail. Secured with an ED at the end. So asecuredlifenow@gmail. And shortly I will have my page up. So if you email me, I can send you my social media pages soon, and it will be under my brand, A Secured Life.
Awesome. And also we'll have her links down below. I know that this is not going to be the last conversation we're going to have together.
Yeah.
We'll be doing some things to help the community just unpack maybe some policies that they do have, or some things that can also just start getting them moving in the right direction. But we'll leave links below to get you guys connected. Once again, I thank you. This has been awesome. I hope you guys were able to get value from this. And I look forward to connecting with you guys on the next episode. And once again, thank you for taking the time out. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Jason. Thank you for turning your pain into purpose too. I really love this platform and what you're doing. Like, I feel like this is going to touch a lot of people's lives. And I thank you for that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. All right, you guys. We'll talk to you guys later.
All right, bye. Have a good one.